question, Andy,
Hi guys, welcome back to my run on Last Epoch.
is the takeaway here, and whether or
We're
not
in
he
chapter
has
2.
maintained a shred of credibility here in the eyes of this judge. This is not a jury. This is just a judge who's going to make this decision about whether or not to dismiss Willis and Wade from the Trump case. How do you think he's doing on that regard?
Well, I think as far as the credibility is concerned, it's perfectly obvious that he said things about this relationship which he's now regrets that he said, and he's trying to fight back on because he understands what the gravity of repeating that in this context is. But the problem I have is you have to establish that he had an admissible basis to know what he knows, and then you can argue with him about when he found out about it and whether he's now taking back some of the things he said about it in the past. But I think what the judge wanted at the beginning was, let's establish that he has an admissible reason to know what he knows. If you don't get it, then even if he's being dodgy and being dishonest, you only move the ball up the field so far, because the issue isn't whether he's honest. That's part of the big bundle of it. The issue is, what admissible testimony does he have about the relationship between these two people? And it seemed to me they had a hard time trying to nail that down.
So in this case, things that he said prior to his testimony, his real testimony, are now going to hold up because they can't hold up corroborating court?
Well, I think part of the judge would tell a jury in a jury trial is that you don't look at the pieces of evidence in isolation, you put them together as a mosaic. So it's not just his testimony, but how it fits in with the other people who had, I think, a more honest and forthright discussion or statements about what it is they observed and what they knew about the relationship between those two. If you have that as a framework, then you can say, this guy confirms that there was a relationship between the two, and we can understand why he's lying or why he's being dodgy about what he knew and when, and why he's made inconsistent statements about it. But you're not going to make the case just on this guy. You have to make it like the big framework.
And, you know, with regard to that, this judge is going to have to make a decision in this case about whether or not he's going to remove Willis and Wade. There's another hearing, I believe, on Friday in this matter. Take us through how you think this is going to go at this point?
Well, I think he'll have to sort of segment it. So it looks to me like the strongest case to have somebody get out of the case is Wade, because you have all kinds of problems with some of his prior statements. Then you have Willis, and then you have the entire office. I mean, the ultimate argument they're making is that the whole DA's office has to be removed from this case. Frankly, I think at this point, if your standard, as it should be, is the appearance of impropriety, at the very least, Willis and Wade should be off this case. And then they should be able to establish whether she and he are so immersed in this that the whole office has to go.
Andy, thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. Andy McCarthy joining us. That's the story for Tuesday, February 27th. But the story
gotta look up crafting soon, see what the deal is with that.
So Georgia, where Bonnie Willis and her case against Donald Trump are again being put to the test after a star witness retakes the stand and is pressed on whether or not he lied. That hearing is set to resume at any moment. When it does, we will take you there live. Welcome, everyone. I'm Charles Payne for Neil Caputo. Let's go to Steve Harrigan in Atlanta with the very latest. Steve.
Charles, multiple attorneys pounding away at Terrence Bradley and really trying to undermine his credibility. This man was a former law partner of Nathan Wade. Now, there's a text that he sent to one of the attorneys that basically said Willis hired Wade before their relationship started. And now he's trying to say on the stand, I was just speculating. I don't really remember. I don't really know. So there's been some hard back and forth with attorneys trying to pin him down. Is he lying now? Why did he send that earlier text? Here's some of that back and forth.
Why in the heck would you speculate in this text message and say that it started when she left the DA's office and was a judge in South Florida? Why would you speculate and say that in a text?
Level 58.
I knew they had met at the municipal court conference.
The stakes here are extremely high. For one, Bonnie Willis, the DA, and the prosecutor could be removed from the case. They could potentially face perjury charges, and the overarching case, the case against former President Trump and 14 others now, it could be delayed for months or even derailed. Charles?
Very good in Atlanta. Thank you very much. Of course, the big question is which side did this testimony help today? I'm going to bring in former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. Tom, listen, as a layperson watching this, it's always fascinating. It feels like the judge knows some things. He keeps saying, hey, save that for later. In other words, you're asking the same questions over and over. You're getting the same response. But it feels like the judge, if I'm looking and listening to the judge properly, that maybe they're scoring points, but to elaborate and draw it out further has to wait to a different phase of this.
Yeah, Charles, I think you're right. I think you're reading the room correctly. This judge is someone, as we know, who interviewed, this witness and the lawyers kind of in his chambers to find out exactly what he was going to testify, how far he could permissibly testify. So this judge knows a lot more about what this witness is going to be saying than any of us do. So I think you're absolutely right to read it that way. I also point out that I think the defense team has been using this witness very effectively. What they've been doing is confronting him with text messages that he sent long ago talking about when this relationship.
But we're going to go back to the courtroom.
His wife, Kyra Banks, works for the DA's office, right?
Yes, correct.
When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Wade?
That's good.
I've spoken to Mr. Wade personally in
many questions.
a year, 2 years actually, when I left the
I
farm.
see you've spoken with the armor-clad
Miss Willis.
woman.
I
She
never,
may be fickle, but she intends well.
my interaction with Miss Willis was
Countless
never
alternate versions of
where I
you
would
have
pick up the
come
phone and
gone,
talk to her,
only
that
to
she would,
drift away into nothingness.
or anything like that.
Some of them were strong.
So you
and
didn't
their
hang out with
power
Miss Willis, you didn't have a
can be
personal relationship with her?
absorbed, given
No, I
a
never
little
had a
home.
personal relationship. I mentioned before that I went to a
I've
dinner
been here
that
for
was
a long
after she
time, long enough
was
for
elected.
time to lose.
That was at a
me,
steakhouse, but it was some 75 to 100 people there.
to lose.
So you knew of her, you just didn't have a business relationship or a personal relationship with her,
If
at
you
least a
allow
close
me,
one.
I will guide a measure
I
of
knew
your
of her
other
from
selves to
she
you.
was in the DA's office and
Will
I had criminal
carry their
cases,
loss
but I did not
fetched.
personally
I
know her. No.
warn you, your will must be
And not having known her,
or you will risk
not really hanging out
losing
with her,
friends,
you got a
close
contract
your
with her
eyes,
office.
and focus on the
just
potential
objectives to
you
human
wish to
asked and
be
answered throughout
as
the
art.
Mr. Chairman, we covered this ground on the 16th about the contracts. Do you have are you going somewhere else with this?
I am, Judge, if you give me a little latitude on Tyler.
Okay, you may proceed.
You got a contract from the office not knowing or having a good relationship or a good working business relationship with Ms. Willis.
That's correct.
That's because Nathan Wade steered that contract to you.
I don't know how it came about, but it was presented to me at the office by the contractor.
Who presented it to you, Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Is that, and he owed you money, you said at one point.
Say that again?
He owed you money at one point?
I don't recall saying that he owes me money.
Cannot do that.
Did he owe you money at one point?
You've woken up. That's good. I see
Not that I
you've
recall
spoken
saying that
with the
Mr. Wade owes me or
armor-clad
owed me money. I don't recall ever
She
saying
may
that.
be flippant,
I
but she
didn't ask whether you
intends
ever
well.
said that. I said, did he owe you or did
Your
owe you
potential
money in the past?
is infinite.
No, he
Infinite
didn't
in
owe me
strength,
money.
yet at risk of drowning
And so
in a sea of other selves.
he steered this contract to you,
Countless
to your
alternate
office,
versions of
and you weren't really
have
talking to
come
him?
and gone,
You hadn't talked to him for 2
only
years?
to drift away into nothing.
The contract was in 2021. I didn't leave until 2022.
If you allow me, I
So you
will
didn't talk with him that whole
warn
time?
you. Your width.
I left in 2022. I haven't really spoke to him since 2022, is what I
I
stated.
see that you
When I
are
left
still
June
Okay.
that strength will
of
be
2022,
necessary if
around
our
June,
world, our
August
reality
dates of
is to have
2022.
any hope.
Other than one last question, other than your attorney, who did you speak with today about giving testimony in this case today?
I spoke to my attorneys Charles Graham and BC Chopra.
And I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. And again, I'll just double check to make sure. Did Mr. Cromwell ever join us by Zoom? Or do we? Okay. All right, thank you. So just for the record, Mr. Cromwell has been apparently watching the proceeding. He waived his client's presence and didn't have any other questions as well. So turning it over to Mr. Blount. All right. Mr. Bradley, you can step down. Thank you, sir. Judge, you want these
God be
exhibits?
with you.
You don't take this one.
Stay safe.
Excuse me.
You've done it. You've returned the
And
shard.
just by way of proffer, what about the text?
I see. Even with both of our shards, this city is lost. Our only hope lies in the temple
Okay.
of Eterra, where
And do we need Mr. Bradley for that?
shard remains.
Have you marked them?
Are
Have you showed them to the state?
one who can help us.
Mr. Bradley, just hang out just for 1 second, just to make sure.
There is an old passage to the surface. I will dispel the rule that keeps it sealed. The temple of Epoch is far to the
And while he's
east.
looking at that, Mr. Bradley handed me Defense Exhibit 23, 24, and 25. Oh, is that from the hearing? From on Friday. Well, thanks for returning those.
Yes.
Let me make sure. Okay, so I've got 23, 24, 25. Anything else in your binder? Good. Okay, and have we come to any conclusions on, I'm sorry, how did you mark it? Our Defense Exhibit 39 is tendered and admitted without objection.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
His messages that weren't referenced today confronted
Okay.
release Mr. Bradley.
So these are additional text messages, Ms. Merchant?
Yes, so what I did was they objected that they weren't complete because like the first part of the text wasn't there. It was just like, oh, there was something before that was said. So what I did was I spent this whole lot of time trying to line them up so that I had the beginning of the text and then based on their objection.
Our
They had
time
all the
is
text. They
running
didn't get all
short.
of them that they wrote.
Reforming the Epoch is the only
Alright,
hope we have of saving this
how about,
world.
I'll just do this. Just, I understand the desire just to have the complete text chain, just for purposes of completing the record. I think that there's no point in having him sit here and authenticate every single one of them. So I'm willing to admit it as a court's exhibit, and only the exhibits though that have been previously tendered or referenced in testimony would be ones that actually are relied on for making any findings. But just so it's on the record, we have the complete text chain should that ever be an issue for some reason. Any thoughts about that, Mr. Vine?
My only thoughts are not the complete text chain. I was able to briefly look in this merchant's phone when she allowed us to have it for 15 seconds, minutes, and there are text messages I know that I saw that are not in what is reported to be State Exhibit 39.
Okay, all right. Ms. Merchant, what about that?
I let them take screenshots of the ones that they thought were, and he sent them to himself on my phone. I have also offered to put my phone up to whatever it is. My phone's an iPhone. It's a Android. I can't download, put it in text. I told them if they had a system to get all of my text, they could have every single one.
We can definitely do that.
Yeah, Mr. Rance.
Text that she's submitting now. There are specific parts of the conversation. The entire text chain. Those particular parts, given the witness's testimony, should be in this testimony.
Sure, I think that's a fair point, that if he had been confronted with a particular text, that could have been the opportunity to admit it as a prior statement for impeachment, and some of them were, but apparently some of them were not.
So it's gonna, I'm taking out the ones that they said he was confronted with, and I'm just gonna take the ones that he was. It just makes it more confusing.
All right, so we have a newly marked, newly compiled 39. Let's see what the state thinks of that one. All right, regardless, if that's now what is being discussed, again, I don't see a need for Mr. Bradley to be here any longer, so I'm going to excuse him at this point. Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Judge, can you be?
Of course, take care. Yes, that's right.
We're looking out the courtroom where Terrence Bradley, former divorce lawyer and law partner of Nathan Wayne, has testified for the past 2 hours. He was certainly pressed on when and what he knew about the relationship between Wayne and Bonnie Willis. I want to bring back, well, first let's bring back Tom Dupree, former assistant attorney general Tom Dupree. All right, Tom, we had a great conversation going there right before they resumed the testimony. And again, you've got the layman, and this has captured the America for a lot of reasons, our attention, but also the legalese part of it. At the end there was a lot of housekeeping. It felt like maybe something could come back around. We'll talk about that later. But just your initial assessment, how did this play out? Who did this favor more, in your opinion?
Well, Charles, this is not the first time I've been interrupted by a judge, so I'm used to it. But today's testimony, I think, no question benefited the defense team. I thought that the defense team did a very effective job of getting Mr. Bradley really to engage the fact that he sent this text talking about when the relationship between the DA and Mr. Wade began. And I thought that the defense team successfully pounded away on him, saying, well, what was your basis for making this claim? Why did you send this text if you didn't think it was true? And he tried to get out of it by saying, well, I was just speculating. And then I thought the defense very persuasively said, well, do you normally speculate or lie about your friends? And I mean, what's he going to say to that? So overall, Charles, I thought that the defense team made a good use of this witness. I thought they brought out good evidence, and I didn't hear a compelling explanation from Mr. Bradley about why he sent those texts.
Let's share one of the more compelling moments with the audience right now. Take a listen to this exchange just from a moment ago.
Do you tell lies about your friends?
Have I told lies about friends? I could have, I don't know.
Do you tell lies about your friends about a case of national importance?
Okay, that's tough. Oh, I could have, I don't know.
Tom, that was a very intense moment. He paused a lot. He parsed a lot of words. Again, he is a lawyer. And so, the lying part really intrigued me because it really was difficult for him to answer. In fact, there was an objection at one point, and the judge said, hey, he hasn't even answered the question yet. What do you, from the judge's perspective, what do you think could be going through his mind with that exchange?
Well, I think what the judge thinks is, look, this guy sent texts that talked about when the relationship began. He obviously had a basis for sending those texts and for thinking the relationship began at that early date. And the questions we just heard, I think, drove home, for the judge's benefit, the fact that people don't normally send texts lying about their friends, or particularly in cases of national importance, or speculating about these explosive issues. In other words, the defense team made the point very powerfully that when he sent those texts, that's honestly what he thought, that's honestly what he believed, and he clearly had a reason for believing it.
Later toward the end, there were some questions about whether or not, when he was hired, whether or not at some point Wade owed him money. And it feels like they were trying to get to a reason why he may be trying to cover for his friend and former law partner. How did that work out?
Yeah, well, there too, at least to my mind, it frankly raised more questions than it answered. the defense team clearly has some sort of evidence that Mr. Wade was in debt to Mr. Bradley, but Mr. Bradley refused to admit it, and you could hear the lawyers kind of coming at it from about 5 or 6 different ways, saying, well, did you ever say he was in debt to you? Was he in debt to you? And he kept saying, no. So ultimately, I don't think they proved that he was in debt, but who knows? It's possible the defense team will come up with some evidence later in this case that shows, in fact, the opposite, that he was in debt, which of course will call Mr. Bradley's testimony even further into question.
And let's take a listen to another very compelling part of this, and then I want to get your thoughts.
Did you lie to Miss Merchant when you told her facts about Mr. Wade and Miss Willis's relationship?
I mentioned earlier that I speculated on some things. I've testified to what I did know, so I can't recall whether or not No.
Mr. Bradley, speculation is kind of a weaselly lawyer word. Let's speak truth here. You're under oath. When you were communicating different details of the relationship between Miss Willis, Mr. Wade, to Mrs. Merchant, did you lie to her about any of those details? Therefore, asked and answered twice.
I don't think he's answered it yet. I don't recall ever whether any of it was a lie or not.
That's powerful. Not recalling whether it's a lie or not is really tough stuff.
It sure is. And Charles, that's really one of the hallmarks of today's hearings is again and again and again, the witness, Mr. Bradley, kept saying, didn't recall, didn't remember, things that obviously he's not going to forget, things that happened very recently, very dramatic things, dramatic stories he was told, all of this. He just seemed to have these massive memory failures. And it's obviously he didn't want to admit things that would hurt Mr. Wade, but at the same time, I think the judge understands exactly what's going on here, and I think the judge is going to be left with the conclusion that Mr. Bradley was not a very credible witness, and it's more appropriate for the judge to rely on the text and the evidence of those messages Mr. Bradley sent, rather than the stories that he was telling today in court about not remembering a thing.
John, what's right there? I want to go back to Steve Harrigan in Atlanta for more details in the latest. Steve.
I think this was a real takedown of the former law partner of Nathan Wade. It started out slow, really meandering, but by the end they were asking him, do you lie about your friends? And there was a lot of hesitation in his answers. This is basically about a gap between a text message some time ago when he said basically the relationship between Wade and Willis started long before Wade was hired, and now saying, oh, I don't remember. That's just speculation. I think he was hammered pretty hard. You could see some of the frustration on the attorneys after a while. This was clearly someone who didn't want to be there, clearly someone who didn't want to talk, who the judge really had to drag behind chambers yesterday for an hour and a half, pretty much compelled him back out there. And I don't think he made a very good showing for himself. I think his credibility was hurt pretty bad. And those texts really coming out and saying this relationship started early are going to hurt.
Point. Over and over again, the attorneys reminded Mr. Bradley that he was under oath. And, you know, you have to wonder, at least the curiosity here is, or infer that you're a professional, you are a lawyer, and there could be consequences, not just typical consequences for lying under oath, but professional consequences as well. Did you spill down the courtroom?
I think definitely there could be consequences for everyone involved, for Bradley himself and his testimony, for the district attorney and chief prosecutor as well. They gave affidavits under oath as to when their relationship started. If they're shown to be lying, they could face consequences, and also consequences for the case itself. Keep in mind, this is about a lot more than just an office romance. This is about the former president of the United States in a major case. A case that could be delayed for months or completely derailed because of this behavior.
Watching the judge and how he sort of refereed this thing, it really felt like he gave a lot of leeway. Even when the one attorney said speculation is a reason lawyer word, I thought the judge would be offended, but he was not offended. In fact, he sort of allowed Bradley to be pressed. And he also inferred that there would be an opportunity to pick back up on some of the questions that were repetitive. competitive later on. And it just feels like the judge has it in, he knows something, and everyone else in that courtroom, probably the professionals, know it as well.
Charles, I feel like you're really getting at something with this judge. I think he has tried to let the game play out and been largely hands-off. I think that's why it's been such compelling testimony. We've seen real bursts of emotion from both sides, people calling each other weasels and liars. And keep in mind earlier, the testimony of Bonnie Willis, the DA herself, where she attacked several of the defense attorneys. So we have seen a lot of emotion. The judge himself is very calm, very hands-off, letting those emotions often play out in court.
Steve, great job handling all of this. Thank you very much. I want to go back. Let's bring back Tom Dupree. And Tom, on that, we have friends, we have close friends, we have people who've given us jobs and given us opportunities we feel indebted to. And it's a tough one to think that Terrence Bradley may have put his career on the line for something that maybe there's going to be enough evidence that it would be inconsequential, certainly not a risk worth taking.
And Charles, when you kind of look at how this whole thing has unfolded, I mean, it's really unfortunate, and that it all stemmed from Bonnie Willis's dreadful, colossal misjudgment to make Mr. Wade a special prosecutor, even though she appears to have been in a romantic relationship.
There goes the fucking map. Great. It's okay, I was gonna quit anyways. A little bit. Okay, guys, we'll see you next time.